Our guest today actually just left the meeting, so we'll give him a chance to come back. I assume that something happened to his Wi-Fi or connection on the other end, but I'm sure he'll be right back. So there he comes. But we have with us today John Gifford from Tulare. John, you okay over there in Salt Lake? And I think you're on mute.
Let me unmute that. I apologize
John,
for that.
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you now.
I apologize. I hope I don't go down again here with my internet. It's been a little spotty lately, but hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll be good. So
no problem, and the floor is yours. So thank you for joining us.
Let me get back to showing my screen here again. Make sure you can see me since I lost that before. Tell me when you can see my screen.
We've got you.
All right. Fingers crossed.
We do see you with your notes. We see your presenter screen, just so you're aware.
Okay, let me fix that. See which one I want to share here out of my 4 screens that I've got up.
Wow, you could be a dispatcher.
I know. Let's see. This should work. How's this one? Of course, I could put my notes up and let you just read it, right?
Nah, we'd rather hear you. You are all set. We can see your screen.
All right. Well, thanks for the time. I really appreciate this. It's good to be here and would love to get to know all of you. Hopefully we'll have some opportunities to interact in the future here, but just to give a quick introduction, my name is John Gifford. I am the director of disaster resiliency for LBI Satellite, LBI Sat. LBI Sat is located here in Salt Lake. I'm in Salt Lake City, so just over the mountains from you guys. By way of introduction, I was going to have Chris Polson here with me as well to talk with you a little bit about our joint solution, but he had some things that came up and so he couldn't make it, so I apologize that. But I also want to put a disclaimer out there that I'm a sales guy. I'm not a CTO. Chris is a CTO, so he would have been a little bit more technical on this. So hopefully you're not going to ask me too many technical questions, because if you are, you might get a sales answer. But we'll see how it goes. But I just by way of kind of an agenda of what I wanted to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about the Tulare and the LBI relationship that we have. LBI is a partner reseller with Tulare, as is Tulare a reseller of LBI. And we've got some products that really mesh and fit well together, and that makes us kind of a better together kind of a solution for you. So that's what we'll be talking a little bit about today. I'll talk a little bit about each of us and our core competencies, and then I'll also talk a little bit about that combined solution and what we can do for you guys. We'll talk briefly. You guys are all the experts on ESINet, and I know Chris mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about that and how we can integrate with that. So we'll talk on that and touch that as well for a little bit. And then I've got a couple of case studies that we have of some outages that we can talk through a little bit and talk about how we were able to resolve those. A couple that we were involved in and some that we weren't involved in, and what the situation was there. We'll kind of briefly touch on those. And then I'll go over in a little bit more detail, I guess, the solution, what we call Resilient 911, and how that fits in and plays in. But like I was mentioning to Jennifer also, feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, whatever, just jump in. I don't think it's muted as a group, so you can just, jump in and ask a question if you have any. as we go, and we'll do it that way. So again, as far as the Tolera and the LBI SAT relationship, to LBI, I'll start with LBI since that's who I work directly for. We're a full service teleport owner operator, and a gateway of satellite services. We do everything from government to private enterprise to media. We do a lot with in the sports and entertainment in terms of providing an uplink and gateway for those types of connectivity and events that might occur. We have a 24/7, 365 network operations center located here in actually it's in Eagle Mountain, which is about 30 miles south of Salt Lake City, down kind of where, if you're familiar with the area, it's where Facebook and Amazon and Google are all putting in their big giant facilities. So we've got plenty of power, and it's right along the backbone of basically the internet between here and Southern California. So we've got plenty of bandwidth opportunities. A really great area for us to have our teleport there. We have been operating for 37 years, providing services, voice, data, media services around the world in over 100 countries. We have in Eagle Mountain, we have a tier 4 rated data center with a 2N+1 redundancy. And that gives us, some real security there, as well as the ability to provide the services that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Our NOC team is fully trained in RF operations and configuration and monitoring of IP networks and data systems. So they're the top of the line guys down there. And again, that's 24/7, 365 that we have. Some of our core competencies, if you will, are in emergency response, disaster recovery, satellite communications, voice and data networks, those types of things, as well as media, as I had mentioned. But we also are very, and I shouldn't even say also, we are very heavily involved with government. Our government competencies include multiple GSA contract vehicles to support our government and military satellite solutions. We do work with the Army, with naval surface warfare, with the U.S. Strategic Command, FEMA, the VA. Our teleport currently in Eagle Mountain has a defense security clearance level of secret, and we also support mobile and maritime communications from that, as well as command and control for disaster and emergency response for the Department of Homeland Security. We do a lot of work with FEMA, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Department of State. Some of the things that we do, we have mobile units that we can send out, for example, on a forest fire out in the middle of Montana, whatever, Wyoming. And so we'll send out a mobile unit that we can get up, an uplink to a satellite connection to provide data and voice. And then with the Tolera product that we'll talk about here in a second, we can add that voice communication capability into it and allow those mobile units to get right into the PSTN for traditional and regular voice communications. So with regard to Tolera, very similar. Their core competencies are basically, they're an industry leader in rapid recovery of telecommunication services. They offer and have been providing their services across the U.S. For over 17 years, and they have multiple patents that cover the products that they have. Primarily, those patents have to do with the ability to provide voice communications and compression levels and things to provide those over the satellite connection, And what that does is it allows it to really minimize the latency and jitter, so you really don't know that you're on a satellite uplink when you're having that voice communication, because the latency is very, very small, no jitter, and that's what some of their patents include. They also have 24/7 365 knock that's managed and maintained by good quality trained individuals. They can guarantee pretty much 100% uptime on that. They too focus on emergency response and disaster recovery communication systems. They've been providing really I guess the core industries that they provide for are government, large healthcare, large hospital systems, and that across the country, as well as finance and enterprise that they do. So they're also CMS compliant. So a lot of the compliances that hospitals, for example, have to adhere, the Tolera product fits into those compliances and those regulations. So what we have for public safety answering points, the PSAPs, is what we call Resilient 911, and that's really what we'll talk about here for the next little bit. And as I mentioned, forgive me, I'm not an expert on ESINet and some of these things, but I do know kind of the basics of it. But the FCC has in some of their literature and some of the things that they've put out, they've put out some best practices, and one of the best practices that they recommend, and you can see here, and I can get you you've probably seen these, or I can get you the where to find this, this particular document where this was recorded, but they basically are recommending as a best practice the use of satellite-based services to forward calls in the event of a failure. There's multiple ways that you can forward and redirect calls. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but one of the things that they do recommend as an added redundancy is actual satellite. Now, typically, and I work a lot with hospitals as well, and typically what we'll see is, they'll call a handheld satellite phone, their redundant, backup, and they think that's kind of the satellite phone. But you'll see here in a minute where we differ from a traditional satellite phone, because the system itself, the patented system that Tolera has, and the LBI satellite capabilities with our teleport, it allows us to actually turn a regular phone, an analog phone, a cell phone, whatever kind of phone you want or you're using, into an actual satellite phone by redirecting it up and out across the satellite link and back down into the PSTN, as opposed to just a handheld satellite device type thing. So again, I just wanted to highlight the fact that the FCC and NENA and other organizations are actually recommending as a best practice this type of a service to be able to redirect calls across the satellite network. Here again, same type of thing. I think this is from NENA, and where we fit into this is, we comply with the standards that are set forth by NENA to be able to offer scalable and diverse bandwidth options, as well as, and we'll talk about this here in a second too, as well as real-time redirection of that data, audio, video, text, and caller traffic. And real-time is an important piece there, because we can do that, and again, with minimal latency, minimal or no jitter, we can do that so that the end users really don't even know that they're on a phone call over a satellite connection. And another thing that we can do is we can redirect 911 calls and traffic to admin lines. I know a lot of times admin lines are kept separate from the 911 systems. But in the event of an outage to the 911 system, we can redirect calls into admin lines or analog phones, what we call red phones, or any other type of phones that we can send that traffic out to. Am I back?
Yes, I can hear you now. You were a little garbled.
Okay, can you see me? Can you see my screen still, or did I lose that too?
No, we can see your screen.
Okay, I apologize for that. Fingers crossed. So a couple of quick case studies, and again, these were some that Chris sent over, so he would probably have a little bit more color on these. But back in, I believe it was April of 2023, Archuleta County, there was a fiber cut that was experienced there, and the result of that was give or take about a 16-hour outage while the telco, I'm not sure if it was CenturyLink or whoever it is in that area, but was trying to get that fiber restored and services back up. Unique to that as well is it also affected cellular towers and all the wireline service was impacted. We were not a part of that in terms of having an ability to redirect that with Archuleta County. So I'm not quite sure what the impact was to the 911 center there and how that affected anyone that was there. But I'm sure it would have been pretty devastating to be down for 16 hours without those voice communications. Now, contrasting that, later in 2023 in the town of Strasburg, there was another fiber cut. The fire station, Strasburg is a Tolera and LBI customer on the service and on this particular product. Immediate call forwarding from the network from the voice and phone system to the Tolera triad, which then redirected all calls back into the Arapahoe County 911 center. And as I understand it, that recovery period, it took about 24 hours for the recovery of that fiber link or that fiber to get restored by the telco. But because Tolera was redirecting all those calls over to Arapahoe County, the impact was really minimal, and not many people even knew that there was an outage there. And I believe there was a second cut in the same town as well in 2023 that had a similar experience there. Now, these things happen all the time. Outages occur, and a lot of times it's not a fiber cut. A lot of time, I mean, it can be customer premise equipment. You could have a failure on a piece of equipment. You can have issues at the facility itself. Human caused issues. Somebody unplugs something or turns something off or hits a button that they shouldn't, whatever. But things happen, not just natural disasters and not just fiber cuts and those types of things. Cyber attacks is also another huge issue. In fact, I was just reading this morning in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, there was a cyber attack at the 911 center there, which caused some major problems and issues for them. And so these things do happen, and when they happen, they take down the phone systems. A lot of times they completely shut things down, and the system that we have in this solution actually allows you to bypass that blockage, whatever it is caused from cyber attack, natural disaster, fiber cut, whatever. It allows us to be able to redirect your calls outside of that blockage area, back down into the PSTN, the public switch telephone network, and then back into your 911 center, so that you don't lose that ability to make and receive phone calls. So this is again a high level visual of how the system works, okay, and the two components between Tolera and LBI, and you and your ESI net. So if you look at this, you have a 911 caller out here calling in from either a mobile phone or a landline phone. It can come in through, you know, multiple paths, whatever you have set up at your 911 center, whether it's a traditional, you know, provider, whatever. But that, what happens here is the response protocol here. It basically would, rather than sending it into the PSAP, it's going to redirect it via a small box that we call the triad. It's an IAD piece of equipment, and what that does is it has the capability of determining, based on preset protocols and things, where that call needs to be routed. And so once it comes into us, or into the triad, it then sends that traffic out across a satellite link provided by LBI Sat, back, you know, through our teleport, and then back down into the PSTN, and then to a satellite antenna, which would be on your building, on the PSAP facility there, and then that traffic would be then dumped back down into your center there with your folks on the phones. So all that traffic, rather than being stopped or blocked here for whatever reason, that traffic is rerouted or redirected across that satellite link, and then drop back down into your facility. And again, using the example of the Strasbourg incident, with this kind of a system, it's really just a diverse route to get back into your phone system there, and the ability for customers to, or not customers, but for individuals, you know, 911 callers to call in, to get into your center there. So that's again very high level the way this system works. And it gives the capability to reroute both inbound calls as well as outbound calls can then go out as well across the same network. In addition to that, like I said, the kind of the brains of the triad here. If, let's say, your facility is damaged, let's say there's a major, you know, natural disaster of some kind, and you can't even take and there's nobody there to receive the calls, or you've got to evacuate for some reason, we can, at the triad level, we can redirect those calls through the LBI system or the satellite uplink. We can redirect those out to another county 911 center. We can redirect them out to cell phones. We can redirect them virtually to anywhere you tell us to redirect them. We can have those calls sent. And that happens real time, like instantaneously, in terms of when and instantaneously, I mean, give or take 30 seconds to a minute to actually go in and do a few things. But through our monitoring and everything that we do, and working closely with you, we can make sure that those calls are being received wherever they need to be received. Going back to the instance with Strasbourg, those calls were redirected and routed to the Arapahoe County 911 Center, as I understand it. And again, Chris, if he was here, would tell me whether or not I was lying to you or not. But and you guys may know about what happened there as well. I'm not sure, but anyway, that from a high level, that's the way it works. We do integrate into your ESINet equipment, and it's again compliant and works as a best practice according to the FCC and NENA to provide that alternate route. We can send not only voice traffic out across that link, we can send data, we can send video, we can send SMS text. and media across that as well. So if there's any of those types of systems that or types of things that need to be sent out, we can send those out as well. So that's really, I think I did that in 20 minutes. But I think that's really the again, from a high level, what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. And we'll open it up to any questions that you might have, and hopefully I can have an answer for you. And if I don't, I can get the smarter people, smarter than me, to give me an answer, and I can get back to you. What questions do you have?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry if I missed that, but are you working with low Earth orbit satellites or the geostationary satellites?
We actually have all. We do both GEO and LEO, and we have multiple at our teleport and our gateway. We actually have multiple relationships with satellite providers. So the answer is yes, both LEO and GEO, KA and KU band.
And do you have the minimal latency on the geostationary satellites as well?
We do for the voice, and that actually comes through the Talera component, right? So we do what we can on our end with that, with that satellite link, but then the compression and all that on the Talera side is done to help with that latency and jitter. Yes.
The other question I have is, we've been advised that with wireless calls, they have to reach the mobile switching center, which is at a regional or national location, before the address is read and they're sent back to 911. And so if there's a cut in an inter-office facility that's carrying the wireless traffic as well as wireline and VoIP, unless we can transport all of the wireless traffic back to the MSC, we can't, we can't just pick out the 911 calls to transport out and get back. And so, what is the capacity of your facilities? How many, how much bandwidth can you provide?
How much bandwidth, or how much capacity in terms of voice calls and concurrent calls?
Yeah, so I mean, I assume that the wireless traffic being transported to the MSC goes through some kind of line concentrator or MUX, and isn't as like individual calls, but is more just a combined data stream. So I don't really know how to answer the question. Well,
and the answer, I think the answer, and maybe I don't know either. Again, my disclaimer that I'm a sales guy, not the technical guy, but I do know that we can provide very high amounts of bandwidth if it's needed. Obviously, bandwidth is expensive when you're sending it across the satellite, but we can provide high amounts of bandwidth. I mean, on some of our other projects that we have, with media and some of these things, I mean, there's very, very, very high requirements to transmit a football game, for example, or a motocross event out in the desert, kind of thing. And we do those things across the same satellite links. So the bandwidth is really an issue of what do you need? We can provide it through our teleport. But typically with the low Earth orbit stuff and the voice, the bandwidth is really minimal, and then we compress those calls as well to take less bandwidth, so it's not as cost or not cost prohibitive. I don't know if that answers the question, but I can get a deeper answer for you if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And to get that answer to you, should I just Jennifer, should I just get that to you? I'll send that over to you, and then you can send that out to Joseph.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
And Jeff's got his hand up.
So John, this is Jeff Irvin, Jefferson County Emergency Communications Authority. I'm the cost man, so I'm always interested in how you model costs, especially in the EZNet setting. You know, we used to have a number of camera trucks coming into a ECC or a PSAP, and so, you know, determining bandwidth need and traffic was probably easier than it is now. How do you model cost quotes, you know, based on a ECC size, et cetera?
So the cost quotes are really based on, you know, obviously, you know, we don't deal with camera trucks in that anymore, but we do it based on a annualized pro rata kind of a thing. We could do it on a usage model, but that becomes a little bit more cost prohibitive as well, because again, when you're sending traffic out there, it spikes in terms of the cost of those calls. And so we spread those out over a monthly, you know, kind of an annualized kind of a thing. But we do it on basically I guess almost a line count, similar to what a camera trunk would be, right? You know, instead of 10 camera trunks, we'd give you 10 lines or access lines that we would consider those. But one of the things that we have done is got this to where the cost on this is really not very prohibitive. It's actually pretty cost effective. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
It does. And my other question I was going to have was, you know, depending on the cost, you know, would it make sense in the rural settings to have some type of a mountaintop installation that was connected via microwave to various ECCs instead of having to have one at each ECC? And it sounds like the cost is not such that would warrant that.
Yeah, the cost, it would actually probably cost more to put up that type of a network as opposed to just having one on each location. You know, some of these, and I'll just throw out some generalities in terms of this. I mean, you know, we've seen some of these be down in the range of, depending on how many phones you have at a particular call center, and what was needed there. I mean, you know, on a small one with 3 or 4 or 5 lines, I mean, we can get these down to, you know, in the $200-300 a month kind of
Wow.
range for, you know, so it's not very expensive. Again, recognizing the fact that it's not going to happen all the time, right? These outages aren't going to happen. And if we did it on a usage basis, it might cost quite a bit more. But when we spread it out over a 12-month period of time, you know, it makes it so that we can cost average that out to where it's very, very, very affordable.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea, again, I mentioned that I do a lot with hospitals. On a large hospital, for example, that might have, a lot of times we'll use hospitals that, you know, hospitals sometimes become the hub of an emergency in a natural disaster, for example. And so we might have a hospital that has 200 or 300 lines coming in with us that we have that. Multiple satellite antennas to handle the bandwidth requirements. And, you know, I'm talking about a larger system, but even with that, we're talking maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month for several hundred phone lines coming into that. So that kind of gives you an idea how, you know, how cost effective it is. And typically in a hospital environment, we can pay for that by reducing some of their copper POTS lines that they might have, because copper POTS lines are going to get cut as quick as a fiber cut is going to happen, right? And so often those aren't the best redundancy, and so we can cancel out some of those and match those up with these phones.
I think Joe's got his hand up.
I do. Jeff mentioned having different sites have the service. If we have different sites, perhaps even in different jurisdictions, can we pull the minutes among all of the sites?
Yeah. There's things that we can do to do that. Yes. And the reason I'm acting a little bit hesitant about that is we don't really that's more of a usage model, because we don't really even do pooled minutes. So there's not really any minutes that are included, if that makes sense. But I'd be more than happy to have an offline conversation with you and kind of show you the pricing models and the way it works. But the answer is yes, we can do some pooling when you have multiple locations. So I'll get an answer for you, Joseph, on the bandwidth question that you had as well.
And John, one last thing, how subject are these installations to atmospheric and/or electromagnetic radiation effects?
That's a really good question, and that's probably, to get a more of a technical answer, I'd want to get one of my network engineer guys on the phone, but are on the call. But what we in our NOC, we're constantly monitoring issues with that rain fade, solar activity. I mean, we've got different monitors and panels on the wall that are constantly watching those things. And so we have protocols set to where if those, if rain fade in a bad storm or atmospheric things are happening.
You got taken out. We lost your audio.
Antennas,
You're back now.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Am I back? Okay. I'll stop presenting in that way. That'll preserve my bandwidth there. But yeah, we have protocols in there set so that when if those things happen, as our NOC is watching those things, they can adjust the power and whatnot to be able to deal with those atmospheric issues, solar issues, whatever it might be. And that's kind of my answer, right? I could get a technical answer from one of our network engineers, and our satellite techs, but we do account for that.
And Joe's hand up. His hand is up again.
Just a real quick question. Have you been connecting into this meeting through your service?
You locked up.
Boy. Can
You're
you hear
back.
me? Am I
Yeah,
back?
you're back.
Okay. I'll just throw out, no, it's not our service. It's actually Comcast. So I apologize for that. I'm in my home office.
Well, this is Jennifer, and can you tell us if you have this solution deployed anywhere on a statewide basis?
On a statewide basis, to my knowledge, not as an entire statewide. I mean, we have, again, between both LBI and Tolera. I'd have to talk to Tolera to see what they have, but we deal more with individual agencies and groups and that type of a thing. And to my knowledge, I can check, but to my knowledge, no, not on a statewide.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who else has questions? All right, any last words of wisdom, John?
Well, let me provide you with my contact information in case anybody has any offline questions. That would be awesome. My cell phone number is 385-775-6954.
Can you drop it in the chat,
And my,
John?
yeah, let me do that. I'll drop that in the chat here.
I'm gonna drop your email in there too.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, they should be there.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we appreciate you being here and giving us some information about your solution and Tolera and LBI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to having conversations with you more, and hopefully we can help you out.
Sounds great. And we
All
will
right.
post this on our YouTube. So for those who weren't able to make it, we will have this up on our YouTube channel shortly after the meeting.
Very good. Thank you again.
Thank
Nice to see you all. Bye now.
Have a great day, everybody.